should have said presidents and vice presidents.
So we want to get into this story. Let's start with Marcia really quick first. Any more classified documents found yesterday? All right, we are going to get into that story because we also, our word of the day today, again?
Different.
Different. We heard that a lot yesterday from Republicans. We heard that a lot from Democrats on the heels of a trove of documents, classified documents, from the sitting president of the United States. But that was
different.
It was all different. Republicans, that's their word of the day. Want to get into that. But first, let's start here. Whether, my take, at least, Marsh, whether, bottom line, potentially not is what we... Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like it's going to kind of back off. Is that kind of your take too, Houseworth?
Here's the thing. We are very fortunate. We are right in the middle of the area that had the rain to our directly to our north. They're still getting heavier snow directly to our south. Columbia and Jefferson City really caught a huge break here. And the school districts, I think, had a difficult decision to make last night because the forecast called for 2, maybe up to 6 inches. Probably going to be closer to 1, maybe 2. We'll probably get another inch, but so it's really hard because you got different areas. John Ross just showed a graphic on our news partner ABC 17. We're in this slight green area, Columbia and Jeff City. Everything to our north, to our west, to our south, to our east is purple or blue. So it's really I don't want people to think the Weather Service blew the forecast. Obviously, they were surprised by the rain.
Did you hear that, Hannah?
Yeah, and I was.
It's different.
There was no but there. But I know what you're saying. Basically, we caught a break. We caught a break. In fact, we're
different.
And that's right. And we're still getting school closings. Hallsville just called. Morgan County R3. Camdenton, so they're still coming in.
So, by the way, the folks from Salter Lawn Service, by the way, small, local, mid-Missouri-based company in Ashland who hires a lot of people. As Salter Lawn Service is not 5 or 6 people. They have a huge staff of folks do stuff year-round. I was chatting with one of the folks. They're out salting Zimmer properties this morning. And there are, even in parking lots, there are some slick spots. It is a little deceptive. Just be careful this morning. And hello, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
We've already met Mr. Houseworth.
It's good to see you, sir.
Producer Hannah's back.
Hello.
Glad you are here. There's John Marsh. My name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you this morning, 874-9390. I want to highlight this again. Iran and Ukraine are in those documents, and we are not hearing. I'm wondering, too, how have people like George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, I wonder what they've been doing over the past couple of weeks. So that was from the show Monday, because this was after some more classified documents found in the sitting president of the United States' possession. And we did get to wondering, what are all the other folks doing right now? Because I think Marsh and I were hanging out yesterday, and we counted roughly, I think, 10... So, Jimmy Carter, still alive. Dan Quayle, Veep to H. Bush, still alive. Clinton, Gore, still alive. W. Dick Cheney, Obama, Vice President, current President, Biden, Trump, Pence, and you could put in if we're including currents too, Harris. So that's
true.
11 people.
Is Gore on that list too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gore.
Yeah. You're right, and Fritz Mondale died not that all that long ago. So that's quite a few on both sides of the aisle that are still living.
Well, and at first I'm thinking, okay, if I'm some sort of foreign actor who is a bad dude, maybe I'm looking at the vacation homes of all of these people and thinking, hey, this might be a good place to find a bunch of old secrets. And then I'm thinking, again, what is actually in these documents? And I've heard this point raised, and I want to raise it here because I think it's a good point, and I think that it's not being discussed enough, is what's the process for classifying documents, and are we over-classifying documents? And there's been a lot of reviews. Yeah. I tried to go back, and I think one of the last major reviews was done in 2010, 10. And at that time, they said as many as 90% of the documents they reviewed that were classified could have been marked as declassified. And I think that is, we talk a lot on the show about transparency, and they're saying, yeah, as we've gotten to the digital age, as we've gotten into this, more left-leaning, we've said, yep, everything's classified, you can't know anything. And so I think that is a scarier question than just like, yeah, I had some stuff in my garage.
And not only is that a scary question, but it's a question we didn't ask when we kept finding stuff on Biden. But now that Republicans have found stuff on a Republican, now it's a good question. And already.
Is this different from the Biden story?
There's different. That's Kudlow. Fox yesterday, he was talking to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is quick to come to the defense of Mike Pence.
Very different from what Joe Biden
It's different. And didn't we?
I feel like this just makes us look bad. Like, come on, we have to be just as upset about this as we were last week.
Different.
It's different.
Or else we look bad.
But it's different now. See, this is different. Now a Republican, he's found documents, so it's different. Now, with all that being said, there really are some big differences.
I don't understand how you just hang on to confidential documents. Is it a souvenir? Is it an accident?
And I think that's the point. So I guess Rand Paul was talking to Newsmax last night and was basically saying the intelligence community way overclassifies documents just to keep Americans in the dark. And so, yeah, I agree, Hannah. Like, how could you keep something that was really important? And so I think the point is the stuff that got walked out was stuff that was, in my opinion, I'm going to speculate that it was stuff that could, if it could get literally mixed in with other things, then maybe it wasn't that important and maybe it shouldn't have ever been marked classified in the first place. We don't know.
Rand Paul didn't go on Newsmax before documents were found in Pence's possession. Because I didn't hear that before.
I was also going to say, if you accidentally hang on to a confidential document, that doesn't make me feel really warm and fuzzy about how we handle our confidential information.
These are good questions to ask now their documents have been found in the possession of a recent former vice president. I didn't hear these questions beforehand.
Well, that's an interesting point. Something Stephanie said is very interesting to me, and she brings up a very good point about overclassifying. You could make not you, but all of us could make the argument too, because the intelligence community is the one that decides, I guess, what's classified, what's not. I'm not comparing the two, but basically when you request documents from state agencies, it's a handful of attorneys that decide what is and isn't public information. And basically, for all intents and purposes, if they decide it's not public information, it's going to be very difficult to get. So who decides that really is, I think, something that's not being talked about.
And I'm going to stick up for myself because I've been consistent from the past. The whole time. If Trump has legitimately classified documents, if Biden has them, bad all around. And I think ultimately, who's really bad is the government, because what we've seen is it's a complete breakdown of the system. How people, that span a number of years. I mean, some of these documents go back to when Biden was in the Senate. How people, for dozens of years can just walk out with a whole bunch of classified documents, and they can end up all over the place and now and be totally undiscovered for dozens of years, and now just like oopsie, oh yep, everyone's got some.
And I'm not
could have happened in years past with people like Zachary Taylor or John Millard Fillmore and stuff, but nobody would have known about it.
As a matter of fact, listener Tim, he's on it already this morning at 874. You can text us anytime, 874-9390. Breaking news: classified stone tablets have been discovered at King Tut's burial. Okay.
Yes. In case you thought the government was ever the answer to your problems, this is a perfect example of why it's not.
And back to the point that we made Monday morning, so I'm glad we did save this audio from the other morning. What are all these other? Because we have 10 presidents, ex-presidents. You put Harris in the mix, that's 11. What are they all doing now? Pence apparently heard us He knew. I bet they're all scrambling, all of them, whether it's W, whether it's Cheney, whether it's Clinton, whether it's Obama. I bet they're all. Mm-hmm.
Well, and John, to your point, what is it? It could cost lives, but also so much of the recent investigations has been about money in politics. What's the influence of Hunter Biden in Ukraine and Russia and all of that? Some of this information could be worth money, and so what's the value of this information to folks? I think that's a really important question.
And that is seriously. And now I'm going to be guilty of it as we chide the Republican Party for going on Newsmax TV and say, well, this and going on Fox. Well, here's what's different. Legitimately, there are some differences. Number one, Mike Pence, he's not a sitting president of the United States of America. As a matter of fact, coming up 7:10, if you get a chance, I want to highlight one of the questions asked in the White House press briefing room, and it wasn't on the dude I man crush on. It wasn't Peter Doocy.
Which dude?
It wasn't Fox's Peter Doocy. It was a reporter from CBS, and he asked Karine Jean-Pierre about, well, what is your take on this? He could have dropped his microphone there. So if you've got some friends that are going to rub this in your face today, make sure you tell them to listen to Wake Up Mid-Missouri at 7:10. So one of the big differences, number one, Mike Pence, not a sitting president of the United States. He came out as soon as he was directed. He didn't hide information prior to a midterm election. He also doesn't have a son that's potentially being investigated and has been accused of swapping the family name for money with countries like Ukraine. Seriously, some legitimate differences. We'll get back into this again, 7:10. Tell your friends that are on a differing political viewpoint than you. You ought to check out that Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up, we're going to do the daily D.C. rundown for you. And I want to mention this real quick before we do move forward. John, again, bottom line on the weather this morning kind of didn't materialize to the way that the National Weather Service was saying this could potentially. It didn't happen that way, bottom line. Yeah, and apparently as you get even north of Columbia, a little bit more snow there, south of Jefferson. 93.9 theeagle.com, KWOS.com. Stephanie Bell's going to do the daily D.C. rundown for us. About 5 minutes from now, what's front and center this morning?
Speaker Kevin McCarthy calling people to the carpet in Congress. Maybe not the people that you would think.
All right. Who's he calling to the carpet? Stephanie's going to get that for you. Coming up 5 minutes from now here on the show.
You know why I'm standing by him? Because his constituents voted for him. I do not have the power simply because if I disagree with somebody or what they have said, that I remove them from elected office.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy talking about the much maligned George Santos, who was elected to congressional office from New York. And come to find out, apparently he is exaggerated the right word or lied about apparently a whole lot of stuff. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Santos is a serial liar. I'm not even sure that's his real name anymore. Now, we heard McCarthy's words there, but now he's saying, you know what, integrity matters. And I might not be able to remove people from elected office, but I can remove them from committees. Yesterday, Speaker McCarthy said he is going to block Democratic Reps Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell from being on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. That committee is one that has access to classified information. And everyone's like, what about George Santos?
And it was interesting, too, because Ilhan Omar and Adam Schiff from California were complaining. This is political retribution by kicking us off committees and not allowing us back on. Yeah, that's how the game is played.
Guess what? If you win, you get to do whatever you want. That's why you want to win.
That's right. That quarterback threw the ball more often to the receiver, and they scored more points, and they won. Yeah, this is how it works in politics, too.
Well, I do like that McCarthy is offering some justification. He did say Schiff lied to the American public during the impeachment of Donald Trump, and he said Swalwell couldn't get security clearance in the private sector, so why would we give him the nation's secrets here? And so he's pointing to those two facts for why these guys don't belong on the committee. I also wonder about the backroom deals he made to get elected speaker, whether this has to do with that, but at least he's offering some legitimate justifications for his actions. In the meantime, Biden is circling the wagons with the Democrats, saying don't give in on the debt. He is saying, the Republicans have extreme economic plans. We need to all stick together because they have to all stick together because the margins are so close. And he said, look, I have no intention of letting the Republicans wreck our economy. And I wanted to be like, did anyone say, Joe, you already did that?
I wanted to say, Joe, what did he say? What was his quote?
I have no intention of letting the Republicans wreck our economy.
Because that's my job.
Right?
That's my job to wreck the economy. Man, so out of touch.
In the meantime, it looks like the Biden administration is going to send tanks to Ukraine or is poised to do that. And I have one question. Where are we going to draw the line? That's what we said we weren't going to do.
And we're doing it. That's a great question. Speaking of George Santos, let's look at there's a compilation of his lies. To an extent, I fault the media for not digging him out before he was elected. But then let's also list Biden's lies from over the years. Woo! Show's only 3.5 hours long.
The drawdown is proceeding in a secure and orderly way, prioritizing the safety of our troops as they depart.
As one of the numerous lines from the President of the United States of America. Remember this peaceful, nice drawdown in Afghanistan killed 13 of our Americans, one of them from the Show Me State. A lot of attention, folks. George Santos is... It's almost comical, the things he has been accused of now, the lies that he has told. George Santos going to be starting in place of injured Patrick Mahomes in this weekend's AFC Championship game. I don't know if that's true or not. George told me that. But we want to remind you, we want to look at some of Biden's lies. Now, and our show's only here until 9 o'clock. So I don't know that we'll be able to get to all of them, John. We're on a limited time frame here. But we're going to cover that coming up here in just a few minutes. First, bottom line, if you're just waking up this morning, haven't peeked outside yet, and you're listening online or you're listening on the apps, by the way, you can go to the app, take us with you wherever you are. You can do it on your cell phone. Like I like to tell John, John, this technology, it's so easy, even I can do it. And John says it is. And in these apps, it's like when I go to John's house and we're rebuilding an old Jeep or something. John says, Brennan, it's real simple. See, you change the oil filter. And I'm like, John, that's not simple to me. It's just...
I was going to say, if you guys are rebuilding a Jeep, it's probably John doing the work and Brandon standing there holding the flashlight.
I'm the foreman and I'm the coffee go-getter for Mr. Marsh. So if you're just getting up, listening on the app, whatever, you haven't been out and about, or you're going to be traveling outside of the heart of mid-Missouri today, north and south, kind of the big story on the weather this morning, John? So mostly wet, but I will say this. Here's another pro tip. If you're walking outside across the parking lot, walking out to your car, I did notice some deceptively slick spots this morning. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, joined by Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth. Producer Hannah is back with What's Hot with Hannah at 7:25 this morning. Can you give us a taste of what you're going to... I know it's kind of early. It's only 6:39, but you know what you're going to be doing for What's Hot with Hannah?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Can you give us a little sample, or will it just blow it?
It's posted on the Wake Up Facebook page. Right. You want to go get a sneak peek.
How close are we to 10,000 followers?
Close.
We had some good ideas for a celebration.
What would for on our Facebook page, which you can do, you can go and watch the show. You can go to our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. You can watch the show. Always kind of interesting. Stephanie and I got the memo today, by the way, when it came to wardrobe, apparently.
Or matchy-matchy. I like that so Hannah had posted, hey, if we get to 10,000, what should we do? And they fell in two camps. One, have a party. Two, find a way to torture Brandon. It was either do something mean to Brandon or have a party.
Except someone also suggested that everybody gets a share of my salary.
Oh, well, that would be nice.
No.
How about some of that $10,000 student loan forgiveness?
Have a party.
If I ever see it, maybe.
Hopefully not.
Hey, by the way, one of your missions has already been accomplished. You guys have tortured me enough already this morning.
Oh, come on.
Big baby.
Let's move forward. So George Santos, the lies, they just get sillier.
Oh, him, he said his employees died in one of those nightclub fires, and people are we've seen their bios, none of those people were your employees. He said he graduated, and we gave him a little bit of leeway on the resume padding because we looked at Brandon's resume. And then he said he lied about the way his mom died. Just crazy stuff. The stuff that's probably, right now they're actually looking into his finances. And I think just yesterday he amended his campaign finance reports, and that stuff can really get you in trouble. That's serious. He said he loaned himself $750,000, and people are like, dude, you don't have that kind of money, so where'd you get the money? And now I think he's amended it to say, oh, maybe that wasn't my money. So that stuff is the real deal and could get him in some serious trouble. The other lies are just bizarre and unnecessary. Why would you lie about the way your mom died?
I don't know. And the other thing I wonder, too, because we know politicians lie. We have a sitting president of the United States of America who lies on a regular. As a matter of fact, we have pages and pages.
I've got some good ones.
Oh, gosh. And we're getting into that. But was he telling these lies before he decided he wanted to be a politician, or he thought, I'm a good liar, I'm going to be a politician? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? And can I tell my chicken or the egg?
No.
So I wonder, was he already a liar that had not been caught in any lies, or did he come up with all these lies to run for office?
Well, and the chicken the egg thing is are you already crazy when you decide to run for office, or does being a politician make you crazy? Because it takes some we have a lot of good, I will say, to cover myself, we have a lot of good elected officials here in Missouri. But I think for some people, there's ego and some other things involved in running for office. And so I think, too, sometimes you kind of repeat a story until you legitimately believe it's true. And you embellish a little bit. And eventually it's just kind of the story that you tell about yourself, or the way that the way that those details went. But some of these things are just so bizarre. And like you said, some of these things are you can fact check them. And apparently no one called him on his BS before now.
Yeah. And sometimes we misremember.
Well, and
But these are lies.
I will say, it has come out that there was a local newspaper that was like hair on fire before the election, saying, a little small local newspaper. And you always say, hey, when something's going on, go to the local newspaper because, or the local news, because they've really got the scoop. And now everyone's like, how did no one know? And the local folks are like, hey, we knew, we tried to tell you, and no one was paying attention to us. And I think at the time, Republicans probably said, don't pay attention to that. We just got to get through the midterms. And now we're stuck with this guy. And we've talked a lot about candidate quality. And now we get to sleep in the bed that we made.
Yeah, it's a liability right now. So we wanted to do Joe Biden lies. We're just going by PolitiFact, which, in my opinion, they lean to the left. It's supposed to be a truth fact-checking kind of organization. They will bend stuff to portray the progressive narrative. But that's the source we went to just for the heck of it. And when I went to go print so that Wake Up Mid-Missouri would have this in front of them, it was 18 double-sided pages of fact checks. And you know me, I'm all about being green and saving the trees. And
what?
Oh, yeah, I try to be green. Say, I like the trees. People think if you're about let's protect our trees that I'm a tree hugger. There's nothing wrong with trying to save a tree or two.
You jam up the printer in the newsroom here at Zimmer every day with all the stuff you print.
You should be a lawyer.
Right? And that's why... So... 18 pages double-sided, didn't print them off. There's a couple of, to remind folks about the lies. The sitting president of the United States is being caught.
I didn't go to PolitiFact. I went to the Twitter. But apparently he says he survived a fire. He was arrested in a civil rights march. He said at some point he overheard a mass shooting. What else did he say? He was the top of his class. He hit a really... home run in a baseball game.
He's a truck driver.
Had a job at a timber company. Just unnecessary, weird claims. Star football player. So was Branden Rathert.
I was a star baseball player.
All right, there you go.
And what's interesting too, again, I'm always, and if I yam on too much about the way national news outlets cover things, tell me seriously. But the other thing that PolitiFact has done is we looked deeper into their fact checks of Biden. Most of the fact checks, they weren't on things that Biden said, because they didn't want to ding the president, because it's a progressive fact-checking organization. It's mostly they're fact-checking what other people have said about Biden. Off the text, 874-9390. Mr. Santos, this is from Ken. Mr. Santos must have grown up in the construction trades. He is such a serial fabricator. Very nice. You get some. You get some.
It took me a
points.
minute.
Yeah, I got it.
That's good.
I got it. Coming up just a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid Missouri. This show I really wanted to go to. I don't go to concerts and stuff like that because I just don't like being around a bunch of people. And it wasn't even a music concert. It was a comedy show several years ago. Daniel Tosh was he played at Mizzou. One of the show I was this close to going to was Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle. Love Dave Chappelle. I think Chris Rock is an.
And you passed that up?
I passed it up, and I'm thinking maybe I'm glad I did. They did their show the other night in St. Louis, and apparently there were a lot of problems. But it brings up an interesting point as we talk about, because Concert/Ticketmaster, guess what one of the big stories was in Washington, D.C. yesterday?
The Swifties took over. You couldn't get your Taylor Swift tickets, and they're saying Ticketmaster and Live Nation have a monopoly, and they're too big, and they have no competition, and that's why the Taylor Swift drama happened.
So this is actually, it's kind of bringing up another interesting issue with Ticketmaster. Highlights from that. Maybe for the heck of it, we'll play some old Chris Rock, some old Dave Chappelle. We'll do that.
I don't want you to worry about me. I'm vaccinated. I got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I gotta admit, that's probably the most decision I've made in a long time. I walk in the doctor like, give me the third best option. I'll have what the homeless people are having.
Dave Chappelle. By the way, if you've never seen Dave Chappelle, he can be... his stand-up is good. If you ever get a chance to see the reruns of his Chappelle show that aired on Comedy Central, I think came to an end 2004, 2005. The stuff he did on that show was brilliant. His stand-up comedy can be brilliant. This was a show I almost went to. Last show I went to, comedy show, is Daniel Tosh, and he played Columbia, but it was Daniel Tosh and friends, and very little Tosh actually in it. But they played, it was Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock playing at the Enterprise Center the other night. I thought, man, this is a show I would pay to see that, absolutely, except it was on a school night. And it was in St. Louis, and apparently it didn't end until almost midnight, which was not what people expected. And this is something, so apparently a lot of problems at the show the other night, folks getting there. And
oh my gosh, I went to the show and I got a longer show than I wanted. Wham! Come on.
You gave me more than what I paid for.
If I go to a concert now and there's like no encore and it ends at like 10, I'm like, are you serious?
So apparently there were big lines because a lot of folks didn't know when you're going in. And I've never experienced this again. I don't go to a lot of shows, but when you were going in, apparently staff was giving you a pouch, and you had to take your phone and your smartwatch, and you had to lock it inside of this pouch. So you could keep the pouches, but you could not access them except in certain areas of the venue that was out of view of the performer.
I've seen TikToks of this. I've seen some schools using it, too, on TikTok.
I've been to a musical performance where they had, like, the people in the aisles had, like, a mag light almost. And, like, if you even touched your phone, they were, like, they would shine it on you. Really? And, yeah, and then I saw them, like, threatening to remove people. Now, the only time I've ever had to basically check my phone was when I saw President Trump at CPAC. And I was completely unprepared. And I had seen, I think, Pence and other people, and they were letting you take your, like, small purse. So I had brought my small purse, went through this long line, and they're like, yeah, you can take nothing. And it was like a coat check in this, I mean, massive ballroom. I'm like, I'm never getting my stuff back. They gave me, like, a coupon. And I was like, what do I take? What do I take? And totally unprepared, no pockets. I had, like, a dollar bill, my driver's license, and a chapstick. And I was like, I guess this is what it's going to take to see President Trump. And yeah, but that's crazy.
So since patrons couldn't access their electronic tickets, staff members manually wrote down. So they lock up your phone. Now you don't have your seat ticket anymore on your phone.
Oh, that's poor planning.
That is.
So the staff had to manually write down seat locations for, I don't know how many people were there, 12, 15,000 people.
So they're worried that they're just going to record the jokes. Now, I can understand that, though, in comedy because the sets are, like, identical. And I had a couple of favorite comedians for a minute, and I would see them again and again. You would go
to different shows.
Yeah, and it was the same set, and I was so disappointed. And then I just learned, don't do that because it'll be the same joke. So I can understand, especially with comedy, you know, being sensitive to that because you wouldn't go see another show, I don't think, you know, or if you had seen it on TikTok, you're not going to go see the show because you already know the jokes.
John, let me ask you. We always talk about what's a great question. What's the first concert you ever been to? What's the last concert you've been to?
So hard.
Wait, are you being funny right now? Did you really? No kidding. So you took for those who are not familiar with George Thorogood, he does Bad to the Bone. There's another good song he did, Who Do You Love? That's appropriate. You took a switchblade into a George Thorogood concert. That's appropriate. I love that Marsh is going to concerts, but he's like MacGyver. He's prepared because you never know what can happen at a George Thorogood concert. He's got his Swiss Army knife, man.
I mean, the last big concert I went to was that summer festival and where Morgan Wallen was, and we had to carry a clear bag, and there were lots of restrictions. And even though it was hot, you like couldn't bring a big umbrella, you couldn't bring a chair. I mean, there was a lot of restrictions, but I could definitely bring my cell phone.
That's crazy. By the way, and it was interesting. So a lot of folks were complaining about the show, late start, and Dave Chappelle did say, "Hey," because he took the stage. Apparently, he's really late. He said he had airplane issues. Coming up here on Wake Up Mid Missouri, John, do you know any more classified documents found yesterday? All right, more documents were found. We're going to cover that. And by the way, CBS asks a reporter of the White House yesterday. It was a drop the mic moment, and I want you to hear that, especially if you have friends on the other side of the political aisle. You should call and say, you got to check out Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 104.5 News Radio, 950 KWOS, 710. They're going to play some audio that you are probably going to dig, man. Iran and Ukraine are in those documents, and we are not hearing. I'm wondering, too, how have people like George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, I wonder what they've been doing over the past couple of weeks. Seriously, because I'm wondering, I always try to be fair. F&B, fair and balanced. How many presidents may still, to be fair, might still have some classified documents in their possession?
Or just
more importantly, like you said, did they direct their staff? Let's go take a second look at the back storeroom at the presidential library, guys.
Is that we're covering our own rear ends, or is that somebody gloating and saying, "Ha, we told you so"? See, look.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that how you take it?
A little bit.
Maybe being honest, man. Maybe, but it was a reasonable question. What are all of the other? We have Marsh and I counted yesterday. Yeah, there's a lot of I think it's like so. Jimmy Carter still alive. Clinton still alive. Al Gore still alive. Dan Quayle, the Veep under H. Bush, still alive. W. Dick Cheney, Obama and Biden, Trump, Pence, Kamala Harris. So Harris included. So there's 11 former / current Veeps and vice presidents that potentially have classified documents.
But the real question is, how many houses and garages do they have amongst all of them that we would have to search? So more documents found yesterday, and I had fun with this because now today the Republicans are using. Well, this is because listen, we chastised the Democrats because
different.
The Biden documents. See, it's in the Trump
different
Democrats. That was the big word. Well, these are different, and now the words we heard yesterday from Republicans.
Different.
This is different. See. So we heard the Republicans hanging their hats on that same word that Dems have for 2-3 weeks. But this is different. This is different. That was fun. I had fun with this yesterday, going to people in my circle, and when I was talking to people, like, did you hear more documents were found? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. And then I'd say, yeah, they found them in. Apparently, Pence has said they've been found. Oh. Uh-oh. And they said. And inevitably they said, well,
different.
That's different. And there are, seriously, this is what I want to tell you. If you have friends that have opposing political views than you, and you get into work this morning and somebody, see, Pence, he had secret documents too, because I'm guessing you might hear it today. And here's what you tell them. Pence is not a sitting president of the United States. Pence doesn't have a son who's accused of selling family influence and the name to other countries. And we know that in some of those documents found in Biden's possession had to do with Ukraine. And that's the other thing I think Steph keeps bringing up. We don't even know what's in that stuff yet. Good, bad, indifferent. And that's the thing with Biden. We know as a matter of fact that they have found the first batch of documents had to do with Ukraine. Guess who else has to do with Ukraine? His son, Hunter. It's not about the computer and the hookers and the cocaine. It's about Hunter, his son, Hunter, using the family name, using the big guy's name that relates to selling political influence. That's another difference. The other difference is Pence didn't keep it from the public 2 months. It didn't keep it hidden from the public as Biden did, because it was politically inconvenient. New York Times, big story over the weekend, saying this is why Biden didn't release that first batch of documents, didn't tell the public, because it would have not. This is according to the New York Times, and I would encourage you to look up this story and tell it to your politically opposed friends. New York Times said because it was going to damage Biden's, not only potentially his presidency, but his name and legacy.
But I still think you could say Pence's timing is politically motivated, as you could with Biden, because, I mean, Pence is saying, hey, I think in Pence's mind, like, hey, let's get this out here now, because if it comes out later, as we get closer to the election, it could hurt me. So I think, probably the timing of the disclosure, what the political considerations probably were taken, because this is probably the best possible, he's hoping people forget before 2024 that this happened. But ultimately, I think, I do think we need to talk about what classifies as a classified document, because if they're so insensitive, or there's so many of them that apparently you can just walk out with them, lots of people can walk out with them, and they can just end up all over the place. There's a larger discussion of, are we over classifying documents? And there was some review done recently, I think as recently as 2010, and when the review was done, as many as 90% of the documents reviewed, they said, yeah, these should have been declassified from the very beginning. And so I think that's the real question. I think anybody who has actual classified documents shouldn't have them, but the question is, what were those documents? Were they should they have been classified in the first place at all?
And that is a fair question. Maybe the timing is bad because we weren't asking. I'll speak for myself. I wasn't asking these questions prior to stuff being found on Pence. I didn't see Rand Paul going on to the Newsmax TV and talking about this until the Pence documents were found. I didn't see Ted Cruz on Fox prior to the Pence documents being found. And I want to play one more thing here for you because I want to get to this mic drop moment from CBS as it relates to these documents yesterday in the White House. I think you're going to dig this. But I did recall there was a time Mike Pence, I think he had his book out, and he was talking to David Muir, and they were talking about classified documents as it related to Trump.
Did you take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
Do you see any reason for anyone to take classified documents with them leaving the White House?
Well, there'd be no reason to have classified documents, particularly if they were in an unprotected area.
That's why a lot of people respond with, not that I recall. I don't recall.
Well,
because he said I did not, which is different than not that I know of or I don't recall.
And last night, David Muir actually played that, and I remember that interview that they played that clip of basically the headline was Pence contradicted himself in an earlier interview. I can't remember when that interview was done, maybe 6 months ago. I'm going from memory, but they did play those clips. He did not say, unless they cut it out, he did not say, as I recall. As I recall is something that a lot of people say on I don't recall. I don't recall. I hear that a lot, especially on Capitol Hill.
And I think, I think for me, the more important question is not like, I don't think Pence was in there digging around, being like, oh, this is a classified document. I'm going to stuff it in my bag and take it home. But it's like, okay, are there protocols in place when you are in a position of serious power? Yes. Do you take those protocols with respect to classified documents and probably a whole lot of other stuff seriously? Do you appreciate the serious nature of the position and the power that you're given? And that's where I think, clearly a lot of people aren't following those protocols, or the protocols that we had weren't very good. And exactly.
So here's what I think happened. Pence, he saw what was happening with Biden, and as much as I expect people like W and Obama and Gore and Cheney, maybe even Carter, they're all going, hey, maybe I better do a thorough search of my belongings and see what I have or see what I don't have here. That's why I said, I wonder what all these other exes, presidents or vice presidents, I wonder what they're all doing right now. And Pence has given us some insight. Apparently, they are.
You don't think there's going to be like some mysterious fire at the Clinton offsite storage facility? See, I get really conspiracy theorist when it gets to the Clintons.
Wasn't it Clinton who made that phrase famous? I don't recall. Did you get oral sex from that girl in the White House? I don't recall. Wasn't he the one that made that whole phrase? Not to my recollection. Not that I recall. That's the way I remember it. Was he the one that really made that famous? All right, I want to do this audio from CBS. This is a little janky, but you'll get the point. CBS reporter KJP talking about the documents as they relate to Pence and Biden.
It being the White House's position for the last several weeks that the president's legal team did the right thing, is it the initial observation of the White House that the Pence legal team did the right thing?
That's not for me to comment on from here. I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
One of the things that the Pence team seems to have done in the last week is make public disclosure of this circumstance. Advise NARA, but also advise Congress and now the public. Any reflections among the communications and press staff here as to how the Pence team handled it versus how you handled it?
Steve, I understand.
She didn't answer the question, but you watch the video and you can see the heads of all the other reporters in the room turning their head, John, like, that's a pretty good question, because that is for two reasons. It's an excellent question. Oh, beautiful question. That's a CBS reporter. His name is Steve Portnoy. But you can see all the heads of all the other reporters going, dang, that is a good question. Because that is another big difference. Biden, the president, the sitting president of the United States of America, according to the New York Times, sat on those documents because it was leading into the midterms, and it was not going to be beneficial to his presidency, nor would it have been beneficial to his name or to his legacy. And I'll bet a week's worth of Hannah's salary here all of a sudden, because remember Biden, what was it the administration said a couple of weeks ago? Americans don't care about documents. They care about the economy, which was BS, because for months, what had they been saying? Americans care about Trump and J6 and all this. They don't care about the economy. The economy got bad, and that's why they said Americans don't. Now, all of a sudden, Americans care about the economy. I wonder if the White House is going to come out and ride this and say, well, you know what, Americans, they do care about documents all of a sudden. I think it's very interesting. Another story on a national level. We do want to get into some other things. There's a lot of things that are happening in not just in the nation's capital, but in our state's capital. Parental bills of rights, tightening initiative petition standards. There's a lot of like big stuff, and not just sexy stuff that'll have everybody talking, but a lot of impactful stuff that's happening. And we are going to cover that this morning. The other thing I wanted to get into real quick, Stephanie Bell does Daily DC Rundown every morning, 6:25. One of her big stories was what would be a reversal. The Biden administration poised to approve sending M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. And the interesting thing there that brought up was kind of like, hey, we were saying we keep doing this thing that we've kind of said we're not going to do. We're getting up to the edge of just flat out helping them. John, you're a military dude. What do you know about these M1 Abrams tanks?
I know. Yeah, I know. I think Germany said they had some tanks as well, and but they were kind of holding back and saying, okay, if the U.S. sends some, then we'll send some too. But yeah, that's where we said we would draw the line initially, from the very beginning. And now we're saying, all right, we'll send you some tanks. So where is that line? Where is too much aid too much?
Big weather story this morning is it did not get it did not get as bad as the National Weather Service had been predicting, and that is a good thing. Like really here in the heart of Missouri, 1 or 2 sloppy, wet inches of snow. Roads mostly wet. Now there are some slick spots in places which can be deceptive. You start getting, let's say, north of I-70, you start getting south of Jefferson City Lake area, you might have a little bit more. Coming up, we are going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. What do you have for us today, Hannah?
I know Stephanie's not a criminal attorney, but I have a possible client she might need to take on.
No, thank you.
All right, we're going to set out the shingle, open up the doors. Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's 7:26 time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Sorry, I was trying to wrap up with our caller there. Yeah, it's 7:26, which is not 7:25, which means you've lost your streak still.
Yeah, I'm still.
It didn't come back on my day off, did it?
It was worse yesterday.
Oh, thanks, Steph.
Sorry.
So, Steph, I know you're not a criminal attorney, but I have a potential client that I think you might want to consider taking on.
I might have to phone our good friend Jennifer Bukowski, but okay.
So his name is ICE, ICE, and he is a canine officer for a Michigan police department, and he's in some hot water. He's been accused and charged with theft, and it occurred in the break room of the police department that he is with. And he's been accused of stealing another officer's lunch.
Oh.
So he's a four-legged canine, and one of his two-legged coworkers got called to the jail for some assistance, and the officer sprung into action, left his lunch sitting on the break room table, and when he returned from his call, ICE, the officer, the four-legged officer, was seen walking out of the break room licking his lips. And Officer Barwig's lunch was nowhere to be found.
This happened, so I don't bring much food here to the radio station. The stuff that I do bring, it's like celery sticks and stuff. Nobody ever takes my celery sticks. I had cheese sticks the other day, no kidding, from the morning. By the time I got back out of the studio and Wake Up Mid-Missouri came to an end at 9 o'clock, somebody had taken my cheese sticks. Have you
Like string cheese?
Yeah.
Huh.
For breakfast?
It was 9 o'clock. That's lunch for me. I've been here at this point by almost 7 hours, so it was
I eat like mac and cheese and stuff at 9 a.m.
Yeah. But it was like, have you ever had anybody take your food from the refrigerator?
Yes.
Have you really?
Yes. It's so frustrating.
Really? What do you get stolen, Marsh? Oh, and it was leftovers?
Gross.
Oh.
See, I've only ever had stuff like prepackaged get taken, something that I would assume another coworker thought they brought in. Like maybe a soda can or something like that.
The best stories are when they prank people, like they leave something really gross or like,
Yes.
I love those stories.
Yeah, somebody stole my cheese sticks.
Should do something to the cheese sticks next time.
Hey, I'm picking Josh Hawley as the winner of the week. Coming up 7:35, we're going to find out why.
They have a fiscal vision, but yet just to stand around and be the party of grievance, the party of manufactured outrage.
Don't. Cory Booker, the Democrat senator from New Jersey. The Republicans are the party of manufactured outrage. These are the same people that created outrage over the fact that M&Ms weren't wearing pants. The M&M spokespeople or whatever. And now the AW Bear spokesperson, the AW Root Beer, they've put pants on him because of that progressive Democrat mindset. You can't have a bear running around without pants selling cheeseburgers and root beer, man. The Republicans are the party of manufactured rage. Wow.
And you can totally take all the money from the crypto guy, but if you can't get your Taylor Swift tickets, you're in big trouble.
That's what we like to call hypocrisy on the show. The Republicans are the party of manufactured outrage. It's crazy. Welcome into the show. We're getting mostly, as it comes to the weather, we kind of lucked out. You start getting into like Lake of the Ozarks region around there. You might encounter a little bit more snow. You start getting kind of, even east, I guess. You start getting east of Fulton. We've got a few folks, a little bit more snow this way. And then you get north of I-70, 63 area, heading up north. Couple of bands where they've gotten a little bit more snow. Any major reports that you're hearing? I'm not hearing anything. We're folks apparently doing all right, man. You hearing anything? Good. Mm-hmm. Yep. So be careful. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert. Sitting to my left is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
There's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. There's John Marsh, of course. Glad you could be here. Every Friday we pick winners and losers of the week. I'm picking Josh Hawley as the winner of the week.
Really?
Yeah. This is, as a matter of fact, an official from his office, Ray Bozarth, really good guy to know. He did a presentation last Friday for a pachyderm club here in mid-Missouri. I think it was the Columbia Pachyderms. He was there. Ray Bozarth is the guy's name, and he does a really good job of repping Hawley here in mid-Missouri. But he introduced an act, and this is to prevent lawmakers from trading stocks and profiting while they're in office. He's called it, and I'm having a hard time figuring this out, but I love anytime there's a law, they've got to name it something really cute so that you get an even cuter acronym.
I don't know why Missouri doesn't adopt this process more.
And there's a lot of things we could adopt, by the way, because there's a lot of, it seems there's a lot of really significant stuff happening in Jefferson, happening in our state's capital right now. Like more so than usual, maybe?
Well, everyone's getting along still.
Yeah. Okay, there is that. We're going to cover some of that maybe coming up at 8:10. And we've got to launch an investigation here on the show. An internal investigation. We might have I hate to use the word thief in our midst.
But you're going to use it anyways.
The word is politically convenient for me to use right now, so I am going to use it. Like the word different. It's politically convenient to use. This is different. Those documents different than these documents. Oh, now these documents different than those documents. So the word is different. But here's the what Josh Hawley has introduced for us Missourians here in Washington, D.C., and I'm not getting it. Preventing elected leaders from owning securities and Investments Act. Preventing
Wait a second.
elected leaders from owning securities.
Hold up.
And Investment Act.
Pelosi? The Pelosi Act?
Whoa.
That's pretty epic.
That is is that like a round of applause
Slow
even
clap.
For Josh
For being
Hawley?
a super troll?
Wow.
That's great. I like it.
That is... John, that's beautiful. I mean, really.
That's winner of the year.
Yeah. I know it's only January the 25th, but I'm going to put, when we do our end of the year winners and losers of the year show.
Yeah, because I'm sure you're going to remember that.
One morning. So this was the Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investment Act. This would require members and their spouses, called the Pelosi Act. This is beautiful. And apparently the bill comes after revelations last year that Nancy's husband, Paul, traded between $1 and $5 million of stocks. Just politically convenient. It was convenient to do it days before Congress allocated $52 million to that industry. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have things to say about this. I guess, do we really think, I mean, isn't it already illegal to use classified and confidential information to, make insider information basically to make stock trades? So, and should everybody be penalized like for stock trading just because of a couple bad actors? I mean, isn't there enough detail here to show like who is doing it in a way that is wrong as opposed to just penalizing anybody who runs for Congress? I don't know. It seems, I don't think this is going to solve our problem. And so, okay, so my spouse can't do it. So now conveniently I give the money to my friend or to my uncle and now they make the trades. I mean, I don't know that this is going to solve the problem. And then also like personally, do I know where, I think most people who have the kind of money that they have it seems like the Pelosi's new, right? But for most normal people, and whether or not I fall into that category is still under debate. But do you even know where your stuff is? I mean, it sits with a professional. They do the stuff. I have no idea.
I know where my stuff is because since the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021, I don't have no more stuff.
Yeah, I know it's lower, but like, am I monitoring it close enough to pay attention? And I think most people is a no. So I don't know.
Richard Burr, the Republican senator from North Carolina, sold investments after receiving classified briefings on the coronavirus pandemic. Hawley's bill excludes mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, and treasury.
Which isn't that illegal anyway? If you got a classified briefing and you used it, and it was timely enough that like you can draw the line from point A to point B. Like, let's go after these people who are clearly doing that, rather than add more government, pass new laws to penalize something that's already illegal.
It is illegal, but they're still doing it.
Well, then let's enforce the laws that we already have.
Apparently, they're not. So Hawley is introducing this. If nothing else,
it's funny.
It's a good troll. 874-9390. Rick, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
Well, you were talking about investments, and President Trump, I think it's by law that a president's businesses and investments all have to be in a blind trust while they're in office. Mm-hmm. And they could do something as simple as that, but
and how would they do something like that? Do they need to enact a law?
Well, maybe that would be the law they need, but maybe investigate and prosecute Nancy Pelosi would be good too.
Enforce, to Stephanie's point, enforce what we already have. And I'm wondering, Josh is I don't know if you know this or not. Hey, Rick, thank you for the phone call. Josh happens to be a pretty good attorney. Is this, they would know this? I'm guessing, you said go and prosecute Pelosi. If they could, would they have already done that? I guess would be my question. Speaking of investigations and all that stuff. John, I need you to put on your sleuthing hat. We had an incident here on the show. So was another member. Wake Up Mid-Missouri is apparently working. And it caused consternation on January the 23rd. That was a Monday, January 23rd, 2023. We had some issues here on the show. Somebody stole my cheese sticks. An investigation about an 83-second investigation has revealed at least one potential suspect. Who is it? It's coming up 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 9.
When you see that this White House won't be transparent with the American people about A, what type of classified documents they have, and B, who actually had access to those classified documents, then you begin to feel the concern.
That's James Comer, Republican congressman from Kentucky, talking about the lack of transparency from the White House regarding the documents that have been found in Biden's possession, the sitting president of the United States, the documents that he hid from you, us, the American public, prior to the midterms in 2022. And it's been interesting. I kind of laughed a little bit now that Pence has come forward and said, hey, just so y'all know, I had some classified documents in my possession, too. It has been fun to hear the Republicans use the D word excessively over the past, 20 hours or so. But these are different than the ones of Biden. We've had some fun with that. And it'll be interesting to see what this investigation reveals and some of the bigger questions. We've got 10, kind of 11 if you include Harris, 10 ex-presidents / Veeps, and we wondered aloud the other day what's going on behind the scenes. How many of these people are scrambling to say, I better go through my stuff and see. It's kind of like, I remember one time when I was in school, I was in high school, and all of a sudden the police come through, because that's where I went to high school, inner city, and you'd see the cops all the time. That's how we rolled in the inner city of St. Louis after we walked through the metal detector to get into my school. And occasionally the dogs would come through, and they were looking for drugs in lockers. And inevitably is what you'd have. You get somebody be out in the hallway, and what would they do? They'd go and start telling, hey, just so you know, the dogs are here. The dogs are here. And that was the cry. The dogs are here. And you'd see some of these kids, they'd run out and get in their lockers and get their stash out so the dogs wouldn't find them. That's what I envision. These exes, they're running around. Hey, just so you know, everybody's looking. We better make sure that we are covered. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So as that investigation continues, a new investigation launched just this morning here on the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
So dramatic.
What's hot? We do What's Hot with Hannah every morning, 7:25. Just something fun. Something talks about something that makes John laugh once in a while. What was What's Hot with Hannah this morning?
There was a furry canine officer in Minnesota who was accused of stealing his coworker's lunch.
And so the police department there, they had some fun with it. So is it one of the canine officers was getting into the coworkers, police officers, and stealing their food. And I mentioned somebody, and it's funny because I never bring the food I bring to the radio station. Is like celery sticks and stuff like that, tomatoes, things that nobody else would take. I happened to have some cheese sticks the other day. And between showtime and post-show, as we all poured out of the Wake Up Mid-Missouri studios, my cheese sticks were gone.
Not my cheese.
And I was like mad, because then what happens? You start looking around at all your coworkers. Who stole my cheese sticks? And John, you said this struck me as odd. You've had food stolen from you at work.
They did you a favor.
If they're not yours, you wouldn't know how long they've been sitting in the fridge. Oh, that makes me sick.
Just us this happens to? Does anybody else have, where they take food to work and you've had your food go missing or taken by or you've walked in on another coworker, eaten your stash of food? So anyhow, as we get to talking about this, trying to figure out the case of the stolen cheese sticks, we've uncovered one suspect so far, Mr. Marsh.
Exactly.
22-year-old female, white, Caucasian, I think, is the term we're supposed to use when we're doing an investigation. It might be producer Hannah. What happened?
Well, I don't know if they were for sure yours, but I also bring in white string cheese very often. And so I'm a little paranoid that I am who took yours. Because there was one day last week I was eating my string cheese, and I was like, man, this kind of tastes a little bit different from what I normally get.
Oops.
It was a different, consistency. I don't know. And I think it might have been me. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Apparently not. You've been whining about it for a half hour.
Well, because you do. Do you, if you have had food taken from the workplace fridge?
It does suck. I will give you that.
But then do you do this? Like, John, did you start looking around at, like, I'm thinking, like, did you look at Aaron from our sister station, Cat Country?
Here's the thing, Brandon. You didn't investigate very far because my desk is right next to yours.
Oh, yeah, I didn't go piddling around on people's desks. And I didn't have to go because you told me. So I didn't have to do much investigation.
Like most men, he just held it inside, cranky about it for 2 weeks, and is now, bringing it up, and he just has been crabby about it.
Where?
Yep.
Brandon, where in the break room fridge did you put your cheese?
Top left shelf.
Yep.
And
giving everybody the side eye. Is that the person who took my cheese?
Well,
I bet it was that person.
Somebody might have taken mine because I was like, oh, somebody moved my cheese.
Who moved? Yes, apparently it's a really good book. I've heard about it, but I haven't read it. Everybody said, yeah, who moved my cheese? But here's what's interesting. It'd been sitting on top of that celery for a while and ate the last, and it would have been fine.
Are we also bragging about, I only bring string cheese and celery? I would, come on. No, I don't believe that. You bring other stuff, unhealthy stuff.
I have sunflower kernels and water. And
He steams sugar snap peas in a styrofoam cup in the break room daily.
Yeah, on a regular basis. So
that's why no one usually steals your stuff, because no one wants your stuff. Yeah.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
So when people take your food, do you start looking around like, who took my food? Do you start looking at your coworkers?
Maybe as I'm out and about, but I'm not going to launch a special investigation.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's gone. If they've eaten half of it, I don't want it back.
John, do you start looking at some of your coworkers side-eyed when they get your food? Probably not. Hey, coming up. There are some, a lot of things happening in Washington, D.C. today. There were a lot of things happening in Jefferson City. We're going to cover some of that coming up at 8:10. And a former Cardinal elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
We live in a prison yard in this country where just everything is tribal, and like anything to do with schools or education is something really the Democrats have to answer for because they control it. I mean, if you look at the Democratic convention, it's like 3/4 of them are teachers. My sister's a teacher. I'm a big defender of teachers, but what's going on in the schools is outrageous, and somebody needs to answer for it.
That's Bill Maher. People say, well, he used to be pretty progressive, pretty Democrat. Now you can call him, and people say, well, he's middle of the road or whatever. He calls it like he sees it. Listen, everybody, they have their thing. He'll call out Republicans. He'll call out Democrats, too. And that's why I appreciate him. But he's right. I agree with him on the education. Even here in Missouri, the Senate Education Committee yesterday, there's this Parents' Bill of Rights, which says certain things, a lot of it prohibiting the dangerous teaching of critical race theory. We know at least one local school district paid money to the Pulitzer Project to pay, hey, how does this work? And what the superintendent of that school district said almost 2 years ago, no, we're just seeing about it. Why did you spend taxpayer money paying thousands of dollars for this if you're not going to teach it? It's BS. And the other thing that they're wrong about is, well, critical race theory isn't being taught in schools. They're lying to you. It is. It's just there's no textbook or classroom, and that's what they hide behind, and that's what they lie about. But yesterday, this was all along party lines. Senate Democrats are like, no, we're okay with all this stuff being taught in school. We're okay with it. And as a parent, one or two things in this that specifically for you, Steph, that you're like, yes, this is important as a parent of school-aged kids here in mid-Missouri?
Well, I mean, I think there are some provisions in the Parents' Bill of Rights about transparency, which I think is fine. But again, I would go back to when we were doing the Hawley discussion about, like, do we always need more government? And I think, the Parents' Bill of Rights is fine. I think more important are local parents paying attention to what's going on in your own school district and getting involved. And I think you can have state laws all day long that say you have the right to do this or do that, but unless you're paying attention and showing up, it doesn't really matter. And I think the other bill that they heard yesterday was the Senate Bill 5, which is dealing with school transfers, and that would have affected me personally. And so it would allow you in certain circumstances to go to a different school in other than the one in which you reside. And I think for me that would have been so some school choice, these types of open enrollment. If your school district isn't a good fit, maybe not a private school. Maybe you have another public school option, and I think that would be really beneficial to a lot of folks in Missouri.
So this is one of the things covered in Jefferson City yesterday. There's some other things regarding initiative petitions. One that I'm really that at first I'm like, whatever, but I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really interested in that when I get to that. Sports gambling. Here's what I don't understand. Everybody I don't do the sports, everybody I know in my circle, everybody's sports gambling, and I don't understand why.
Illegally.
It is illegal.
So we have laws against it.
Don't out anybody.
And to the point where you're not supposed to even do the March Madness, those pools. Yeah. I mean, those are technically illegal.
So we have laws on the books, but we're not enforcing them.
Well, now here's the thing. This is a very sensitive issue, but yes, the answer is yes. Go into any gas station here in mid-Missouri, including a couple of towns that I won't mention, right across from police stations. There are slot machines right there. Technically, if you look, and Stephanie may have a different perspective, I've read what the judge's ruling said in Platte County. Those slot machines, the judge says, are illegal. The Highway Patrol believes they're illegal. That's a political mess, by the way. That case is ultimately probably going to end up at the Missouri Supreme Court. But Dave Schott says they're illegal, and it's now the companies that run those vending machines say that they are legal. The reality is there is a judge in Platte County who ruled they are illegal and violate Missouri gaming laws. I was at the Capitol when May Sheevy testified. The schools in the lottery, she says, are losing millions and millions of dollars to these alleged. It is, and that's something Phil Cristovelli told Stephanie and I. He does not want that in the bill. He wants to get a clean sports wagering bill because he said that there's no reason to put that in. If they put the slot machine bill, when he said this at the governor's prayer breakfast, basically it's going to kill the bill.
There's ongoing litigation in which I'm involved pending in Cole County, which I will not comment on at this time.
Okay, gotcha.
People are betting on sports. They're getting online, the DraftKings and all that.
Yes, they are.
So is that if this is not infringing on your lawsuit? Like I can get online right now and bet because we see the commercials all over the place, I can legally do that, or is it illegal for me to do that?
The lawsuit doesn't involve sports wagering.
Okay.
And so no, it's illegal for you to bet on sports. And so people are like, well, I can get online and get on these websites. Yeah, all illegal. You can, if you're a Missouri resident, you're not supposed to be betting on sports. There are folks it is legal. Kansas and many other states have legal sports wagering. So there are people who live in Missouri who can literally get in their car, drive 5 minutes over the state line and bet and place bets. So that's a possibility. And a lot of people are saying, well, how does this work? There is very sophisticated software, geofencing type software that can locate where you are and is supposed to help with compliance in states and limit the betting to folks in jurisdictions where it is legal. But right now, no, sports betting is not legal in Missouri.
And Stephanie's absolutely right. I didn't realize you were involved. I was looking at you more of the perspective of somebody who knows that case, obviously, because it is complex. I want to just point out something, one other very important point, Brandon, to tell you how sensitive this issue is. John and I covered it. Jefferson City, and we've gone to the Boonville for our Christmas party. The only reason Boonville has that vote is because the voters of Jefferson City 3 times rejected riverboat gambling and decades ago, and one of the reasons they rejected is because they were worried about immorality of the churches were, but also about mob influence. That was an issue that they raised.
St. Louis, early 80s, the mob was a real thing. Marsh, let me ask
1980s?
Yeah, the 1980s, yeah. Huh. Oh, yeah. It was...
Oh, my God, the underworld. There were
car bombings.
There were people getting killed.
It was for real. John, let me ask you this. What is it... And this is the thing I've never understood. I go to the casino once a year, and I like to play the slots, and that's about it. But I've never understood why people are against gambling. Is it because is it still tied to moral issues? In your opinion, what is it?
It was I can say this openly because we reported on it, John and I did, and in the 90s, it was primarily the Baptist churches in Jefferson City. They were very, very vocal, and a gentleman by the name of Jack West, who has since passed away. They were worried it was taking money away from people who didn't, but it was morals, and also it didn't help that we had a Speaker of the House who was under federal indictment at that time, involving a casino. Now I don't believe Griffin ended up going to prison for that. I think it was something else, but he was alleged. It was a really complicated thing, but that hurt the gambling issue in Jeff City too.
Ed says via text it evens out, so people leave Missouri to go. They leave Missouri and they go bet in Kansas, and the people from Kansas are going to be driving over here to buy legalized recreational weed when it goes full-fledged. By the way, this is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Powell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworth.
That's an interesting perspective.
But you don't want to be the state that gets left behind, right? Whether you're marijuana, which is kind of the argument that, people have made about marijuana here, and I think is the argument made by sports betting. I mean, I think now, are we more than half of the states? I should know that number, but we're getting really close if we're not to half.
Recreational weed?
No, on sports betting.
On sports wagering. Phil Cristofanelli told, because I was trying to get that, he told us that there's hardly any states left that haven't done it.
I think that's right. I mean, the shift is kind of like marijuana, where it's just happened so quickly. Of course, it took that United States Supreme Court case to kind of open up sports betting, but since then it's kind of been, just a domino effect. And Missouri doesn't want to be, one of the only states, I don't think, at least according to the legislature. Yeah. That might be it. But with gaming and with marijuana, I don't think you want to be the last state and have people, leaving your state to go do this especially being in Missouri. Are we the one with the most contiguous states?
I believe so.
I think that's right. And so we are especially susceptible to folks just jumping the border to do something different.
And you look at the population centers in St. Louis and Kansas City. Guess what? They both border states where you can do a lot of this stuff. Now, another thing interesting in Jefferson City, I look at it, I'm like, whatever, but yeah. Direct access to physical therapists. This is something that's been talked about. In order for a person in Missouri to see a physical therapist, they first need to be referred by a physician. A lot of times, sure. But then after, it's like a cold. I wish we could go to a pharmacy and just, hey, listen, I got a cold. Give me some antibiotics and some cough syrup. And I'll give you an extra 10 if you give me the good stuff, by the way. Can't we? I'm kidding. Kidding. But some of these things, like a physical therapist, like if I know, okay, I've had this issue before, I just want to call a physical therapist. For example, I do with piriformis syndrome. I've had shoulder surgery, and over the years, more than once, I've had to go back to physical therapy for the shoulder. I have to go to my doctor. Then I have to go and wait, and I have to make the appointment and all this, and then he's got to schedule me, and then the physical therapist says, oh, you've got problems with your I know. That's why I'm here. I know this. Would you be on? It'd be interesting to see what Tobler says about this on the Tobler show this afternoon at 4 o'clock. He happens to be a physician. But I wish some of that stuff would be easier. Like, hey, can you just give me some cough medicine or some?
Yeah. It's exactly right.
But you can go see the chiropractor without a referral. You can just make an appointment, right?
But what Brandon is referring to is specifically is it the therapist? I want to make sure because there's a couple different bills. I think it's the therapist, and that has been a controversial issue at the Capitol. It controversial in some circles.
By the way, congratulations to Scott Rowland. Former Cardinal third baseman. I guess by position, I didn't know this about third baseman. Least represented position in the Hall of Fame. Scott Rowland played for the St. Louis Cardinals, going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. How cool is that? 874-9390. Brent, Hannah, can you please get this? Thank you. Brent, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
Good morning, everybody. Stephanie, I got some information for you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. 21 and 504.
Okay.
26, 624. 31, 744.
Bingo.
36, 864.
Okay.
Well, the first one, pitchers and catchers report for the Cardinals on the first one.
Hey.
Full squad report on the second one. First spring training game on the third one. And March 30th, first home game.
March, so just a little over 2 months. First home game for the St. Louis Cardinals, who have a new...
So you know, I'll call you back in February to start talking the minutes, and so after I tell you, I have to call back 2 minutes later to update you.
Hey, Brent, let me say, and if you're busy that day, don't worry about calling back in. Hey, but I got to tell you this. We were talking about you on the show yesterday, like 8:35. I can't remember how we got into the...
Oh, man, that was just about the time I got in the shower.
All right. Again.
The announcers.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about Chip Carey maybe joining the Cardinals as an announcer. Yeah. And we were talking about you as some guy that will call into the show. Well, we appreciate you checking in. Coming up, we are going to be doing the Morning Bell business news. Little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you have for us this morning, Steph?
Well, I know I love a good small business, but I also fangirl over Amazon, and sometimes I feel guilty about it, but not this time. Amazon's doing something really cool they announced yesterday.
Good morning. It's 8:27. Time for the Morning Bell Business News. Little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
I love my small local businesses, but sometimes Amazon just makes it so easy, and it's helpful. And in this way, I think it is helpful. At a time, we heard that they were laying off a bunch of employees yesterday, but we also know people are spending more and more and more on everything from groceries to prescriptions. And yesterday, Amazon announced a new product that you can add on to your Prime membership. So for $5 a month, you can join, what is it called? RX Pass. And what they've added is 80 different generic prescriptions, 50 generic prescriptions that treat 80 different kinds of things. And it's basically unlimited. So for $5 a month, you can get any of these prescriptions. And they said currently about 150 million U.S. residents have a prescription that would be covered by the RX Pass. And so for this $5 monthly fee, you can just get it. And it covers things like high blood pressure, anxiety, acid reflux, and hair loss.
You're saying that, I'm going, yeah. Hair loss, yeah. Anxiety, yeah.
And it wouldn't be $5 if you have all of those. It would be $5 combined for, it wouldn't be $5 for each. It'd be $5 for all of it. So I think, as people are, spending more, elsewhere, I think to the extent you could get those mailed to your house, to the extent that, it's just part of your Prime membership, Amazon is taking over the world, I think. And I think finding ways to get people, what they need for a reasonable price, I think is smart. And I like it.
One of the things, and I can't remember if we covered this in the Morning Bell the other day, but there's a guy, Steven Crowder. Candace Owens, if you're familiar with Ben Shapiro. As a matter of fact, Ben Shapiro has a nighttime show on one of our radio stations, The Daily Wire. A lot of folks. I've always said, who I would love to see debate Ben Shapiro, because Ben Shapiro met him a couple years ago. He came to the Mizzou campus during the unrest at Mizzou in 2015. He was here on the show. We went and watched the thing he did, and to see it, because you've seen the videos, people will get up. Usually it's college kids, and they want to try to challenge him, and he just kind of dismantles whatever their argument is. I have seen, I don't think anybody better at debating. A close second would be Gary Nolan, who hosts the Gary Nolan Show. How much money would you pay to see Gary Nolan debate Ben Shapiro? Like, I would pay money for that. I don't know how it'd go. I don't know how politically opposed or how politically congruent they are on various issues. I would pay money. Gary Nolan hosts the Gary Nolan Show weekdays here at 9 o'clock. But there's a guy, Steven Crowder, that I thought you had mentioned as it relates to like workplace employment contracts and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of drama online about this. Steven Crowder, I guess, got a contract from the Daily Wire. Apparently it had some provisions in there about big tech. And now Steven Crowder is saying Daily Wire's in bed with big tech. And Daily Wire's like, dude, we're running a business.
And it has to do with kind of cancel culture. It's an interesting story. We'll get into that coming up at 8:35.
Being a lawmaker for 8 years, it seems very, very clear that the school district should have been open that day. There's no requirement for an appointment in state statute, and their own policy is in conflict with their own procedures they had published for that time period.
It's former State Rep Chuck Basie chatting with our news partners at ABC 17. So he's the guy who's running for school board, Columbia Public School District, and there's the district says, well, here's our rules, and basically Chuck Basie and his team of attorneys are saying, yeah, well, here's the state rules, and we've heard from people on this radio station like Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft saying, well, we believe that the rules of the state would supersede the rules of a local electioneering body. Brian Houseworth, matter of fact, in court. So that's bottom line on that. There's going to be a trial coming up on Monday. Houseworth in the courtroom yesterday. Quick 1-minute synopsis on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is there were so many lawyers in court, it took a lot of the time of the hearing just to be able to figure out when they could actually have a meeting that would work with all their schedules. That's really what took the longest because they agree on the facts. But just in 20 seconds, basically, Basie believes they violated state law by not accepting his candidate filing. The board counters that he needed to have made an appointment. Judge Jacobs saying in open court he will have a trial on the merits on Monday at 1:00. He will rule on Monday. He may go into his chambers to look up a statute or something, but he intends to rule. And finally, Brianna Lennon was not in court, but she was represented by County Councilor Dykehouse, who said that Ms. Lennon will obey any order regarding the ballot.
So the Boone County clerk wanted to get involved. The reasoning that Brianna wanted to get involved.
She wanted a different judge. Kevin Crane had the case, and again, she does not have to give a reason for that. You see it more in the criminal element than when I say the criminal cases than you do in a civil case. But she clearly wanted it to go to a different judge. It's gone to Judge Jacobs, and he will handle the case. Now, she was not in court, but Mr. Dykehouse was. Actually, I talked to him outside. Just to make sure I had his correct spelling. But, yeah, he was there.
And whether you're in the whatever school district you're in, the whole case, I think it's interesting. And not just because it's happening here in mid-Missouri, but here's the state election laws, but here's the school board's laws, whatever it is. It's a fascinating case, I think.
It is. And, Brandon, I think there's something else very interesting, and that is the fact that the Secretary of State told you and I on the record, we have him on audio saying at Jay Ashcroft that basically CPS cannot overrule or contradict state statute. And he said he was absolutely confident Brianna Lennon would make the right decision. And right decision to him was to put Basie on the ballot. She did not do that. She said that basically she deferred to CPS. And they're running out of time. God forbid we have snow on Monday, because that's something that all these people have trials coming up, and they're trying to figure out how to get the transcript. Somebody almost may have to get into a car and drive. They're going to have to appeal. Whoever loses will appeal, and they're going to have to go to the Western District Court of Appeals. So they're trying to figure out, that was a discussion. What time does the Western District Court of Appeals close on the last day? I want to say it's February 6th.
There's a date by which the ballot has to close. So these things are always moving very quickly. I have had the lovely pleasure of showing up on the very last day in a circuit court and having to try something the same day and get a decision by 5 p.m. on the very last day. It is not pleasant. And obviously that didn't leave any time to appeal. But the courts of appeals are very aware of these types of cases and are very good in expediting them and have been. But yeah, there's a timing issue. But again, I don't think it's an interesting case. I think it's open and shut. I really think Basie is on strong ground here. I mean, think about it. It says this is the filing period.
Correct.
Okay. Nothing says you have to make up your mind 2 weeks at the beginning of the filing period. And I'll go back to when I was appointed first on the Board of Aldermen, and then there was a filing period for me to run for election. And I think I made the decision on the very last day. I was talking to my family. I was talking to my work. I was talking to the radio station. I was consulting all of these different options and trying to decide, okay, is this something that I want to do? And I think I filed on the very last day. When we had Representative Basie on the show, he said, it was the Christmas holiday. I talked to my family over the weekend.
Yes.
So at the time that I decided, it was already past the time that I could have made an appointment. So the statute gives him those days to make to run. And so, you should be, as a citizen, you should be able to, if it says you have until this day, you should be able to decide at 4:00 that day and go wherever and sign up. And I think the school board took that right away from him, and I don't think they can do that.
It's one sentence.
And that's the other part of what makes this whole story so interesting. If it were that cut and dried, there's some people, i.e. CPS, that doesn't think so, but we know why. It's because it's Chuck Basie, who sat on the education committee in the House, and he has been he's been a great ally for parents and taxpayers. By the way, taxpayers who pay we paid our property taxes a month ago. And did you look at your property taxes and see how much you're going to wherever you are, your local school district? 874-9390.
And think about the cost of all those lawyers up there in the front of that courtroom. It was full of the judge. I mean, this is costing, and it's Stephanie's right. It's one sentence, and it basically says you have until 5 p.m. on the final date. I believe it's the 14th Tuesday before, maybe 14 Tuesdays ahead. But basically, Basie believes he's on strong ground.
And that's what I go to. I think, it's pretty simple.
It's one sentence.
State law that says this, and I think, is it Dean Klemke? He was running for school board, and he dropped out. Said he wasn't prepared. But last ballot we saw, his name was still on there. That was the last ballot we saw. And I think a great thing that Chuck could have done, if this doesn't go his way, if it doesn't go the way of the taxpayers and the way of righteousness, by the way, in my opinion, I said Chuck should legally change his name to Dean Klemke. Because his name would be on the ballot. He could legally change his name to that. He could win. Apparently, the gentleman, Dean, who dropped out, he specifically requested that his name be removed. I think they got wind of our idea and thought there was something to it. 874-9390. 874-9390. Greg, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
Hey, I was just curious. So is the Columbia Public Schools, are they pushing back on this because Basie's conservative, or are they pushing back because they just save face that they're wrong? I mean, I believe that it's, he's conservative.
Greg, yes and yes. Yes and yes, because Chuck Basie, local state rep, sat on the education committee. He was a vocal advocate for parents. He fought very hard, as did people like Cherie Tolson Reich, fought very hard on behalf of these parents when we learned about all the crap happening in the schools. And yes, he is conservative. And yes, Columbia, I said this yesterday, Columbia Public Schools, they're like Teflon sometimes. A lot of this stuff, man. You know what I mean?
They are bullies. Yep. They are bullies, and so are the left. They are bullies. That's all it is. Well, hey, have a good hump day.
Hey, Greg, thank you. We appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri here on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. Somebody said, and we played these comments yesterday, somebody called in the Tobler Show talking about how we never compliment the school district. Brian Houseworth. You seldom see Brian Houseworth get upset and passionate about stuff. Brian has done numerous stories that highlight good.
He said, check the receipts. I got the receipts. Go to the website and see all the stories that I've written.
And we've gotten a lot of audio, and I've got another one. I'm working on a big feature with Dr. Yearwood about 150 years of CPS, including President Reagan's visit. And I wasn't upset. It just frustrates me that people don't listen carefully. And before they say something like that, they should be more careful. And I know the person probably he wasn't being personal, but it is still frustrating.
Right. Yeah. And we have complimented the Columbia Public School District. They're very consistent. I do think it's humorous. We get a statement out of an abundance of caution. Schools were canceled because of the weather. We're concerned about student safety. Now you're concerned about student safety. 874-9390. Marissa, welcome into the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, I just wanted to chime in about the whole Chuck and CPS. I'm a parent at CPS, and with my lived experiences with CPS, I truly believe that CPS hates anyone that goes against them. And most of the people they see against them are conservative voices. They don't respect conservative voices. They don't listen to conservative voices. And there is constantly them battling frivolous lawsuits, wasting our taxpayer money, and ignoring parents And like you said, they are very consistent with doing those kind of things.
I agree, Marissa. Thank you for the phone call. There was apparently there was a candidate forum last night, and reading the account in the Missourian newspaper, several of the candidates said, for example, the thing with the diversity and inclusion breakfast, where public school district, the district took students to an event where the JAWS for the CPS was apparently on the planning committee for the city, knew that there was going to be drag performers there. Understand, this is not about drag performers, okay? It was about the communication, basically lying. I believe CPS, they're trying to cram that stuff down the throats. But at this forum last night, apparently most of the candidates did say the communication with the school district is absolutely an issue. And I think they know it. It is. It's just that just don't care. My take. Roger, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
Brian, good to talk to you this morning. Hey, more of Brian's earlier newscast. He mentioned that the Columbia Public Works was concentrating on bus routes and routes to schools. I'm trying to figure out why they're concentrating on routes to schools if the schools are closed.
Well, it would, in some cases they're preschools. In other cases, no. The CPS schools are closed, but not all the parochial schools are closed. Basically, the priority routes just happen to be routes where some of the hospitals are on, and schools too. But CPS is closed, so you did hear it. You did hear it correctly. And there are slick spots. We had the semi overturned this morning. Thankfully, that truck driver was not seriously hurt.
Or if we're listen, there's sometimes people think some things about me based on my past, and I have to be okay with it because, to an extent, you're right to think that. I, up until 2.5 years ago, had an earned reputation. And usually it's wrong. CPS has an earned reputation of poor communication. So I'm going to bet they probably didn't communicate to the city they were going to be closed, and that's why City Public Works cleared those routes. That's just my summation. 874-9390, 874-9390. Coming up, Corey, call us back, man. Coming up, we're going to be doing leftovers, some of the things we didn't get a chance to get to during the show today here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
All right, some things we did not get a chance to get to on the show today. Leftovers. We open up our refrigerators and see what we have. Marsh, what do you have in your refrigerator today? Do you see and I wonder if it's our mountain lion, our cougar, the sturgeon panther that was spotted here in mid-Missouri. Did you see the picture, Steph, of this thing? It's huge. Number one, they're saying, and it was laying there in a pool, and I guess the car hit it, and it knocked the lion out for a little bit, and it laid there, and then got up and took off running. What do you have for leftovers, Steph?
Well, there's this Daily Wire Steven Crowder drama that if you get in an internet rabbit hole, there was a video and then a response and then a response video, and I don't know where it's going to end up.
And here's why I find it's interesting, because it's kind of one of those workplace things we've been talking about. Non-compete is going to be a big thing here in Missouri this year. You go work somewhere and they say, well, you sign a non-compete 6 months after your separation. You can't work for another industry. And people are saying it's time for those to go away. And this is kind of a workplace thing.
It's a workplace thing. I guess Crowder was going to leave the Blaze, and he started talking to the Daily Wire, and the Daily Wire sent over a term sheet to him and said, hey, we pay you $50 million, which is over 4 years. But, the provision he had a problem with was, hey, if you get demonetized on any of these platforms, we'll cut your pay a certain amount. You'll be penalized. And he said, well, that's weird. So you mean I can't say anything that YouTube doesn't like? Then I'm being censored by the Daily Wire. Basically, you're saying that I'm not going to get paid if I say something that big tech doesn't like, and you're the Daily Wire. You're saying that, you're fighting big tech. And he said, well, do all of your other talents? Does Candace Owens, does everyone else sign this contract? Does everyone else agree not to speak out against big tech? And Daily Wire responded and said, no, that's not how this works. But they said, we're a business. We rely on viewers. We rely on ads. And if suddenly, if we agree to pay you $50 million and suddenly no one's seeing your show and all of our advertisers drop and we're not making any money, then we can't pay you $50 million. That's just, it's a business thing, and you don't know how business works. And there are some different arguments. Daily Wire is saying, hey, we do this, we say some things on our YouTube channel, and then we put some things behind a paywall on a different service that we say a little bit more. And that just
OnlyFans?
No, I don't think there's a Daily Wire OnlyFans.
Ben Shapiro's on
OnlyFans. Gosh. But they said, those are kind of the rules of the game. And although we don't like it, that's kind of how we have to play right now. We're doing everything we can to get the message out and to build the conservative movement. But it's weird for conservatives, I think, especially in conservative media, because two big players right now are just colliding. And, I think there's three camps. There are people who are squarely in the Daily Wire camp. There are people who are squarely in the Crowder camp. And there are people who are like, why are you guys fighting about this? Let's all be on the same team.
Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be rich and canceled? Or you just want to be canceled? I love Candace Owens' take on Steven Crowder. She's talking about specifically here.
Rather than being angry, I would like to implore my audience and everybody that isn't paying attention to this situation not to condemn him, but to pray for him.
I think that's bless his heart.
I think that's what she's saying.
He gave up $50 million, and now he's just angry on YouTube. I don't know what that... I mean, she was pretty angry right away, and so were a lot of the Daily Wire people. I don't know. Again, it's been going back and forth and been pretty heated, but maybe Daily Wire is now just taking a step back.
So he turned down $50 million to stand on principle and morals.
Apparently. I mean, he's not... He's still making money independently.
Yeah. As somebody who paid some hefty fines for dropping my health care insurance after President Obama said I had to get it. Somebody who intentionally dropped my health care and paid for it dearly. By the way, I appreciate somebody that